Today, apropos of absolutely nothing, I'm going to be reading from my chapter of my forthcoming book, The Culting of America, called The Skinny White Woman. This is going to take more than 10 minutes, so if you're watching this on video, there will be several. This is chapter 2. We've just got done talking all about the charismatic leader. It's called ... and his skinny white woman. The guru often isn't doing it alone. Time and again, when an American cult comes to public attention, often because they've crossed some very clear lines and have victims or bodies to show for it, we find very near the cult leader a skinny white woman pulling some of the strings. When NXIVM was all over the news in 2017, 2018, and it came to light that Allison Mack was one of Keith Raniere's lieutenants who helped him with his schemes to groom and schmexually abuse women, I was heartbroken. Not sweet Chloe from Smallville, but also intrigued. Why her? Why, in culty groups, did there seem to be so many women like her? Thin, white, overly dedicated to the cult leader, with more access to him and more privileges than most other members. My own childhood had been very much marked by our leader's death, when his skinny white woman took over as the appointed leader of the cult. When the news could speak of nothing other than Jeffrey Epstein and his teenage schmex trafficking ring, there she was again, the skinny white woman in the body of Ghislaine Maxwell. I saw her everywhere, in the matriarchs of the Duggar family, to the woman at the center of One Taste, Hollywood's infamous schmorgasm cult. And I started to notice the pattern in so many American cults and culty groups, going all the way to the beginning of the country. Trump voters. What was it about the skinny white woman that was necessary to the success of the cult leader and their establishment of coercive control? I knew instinctively that both her whiteness and her skinniness were important. I could think of countless aunties who fit this description in the communes of my childhood, always close to the leader, plugged deeply into the organizational structure, and often bullying other women and girls about their behavior, including their weight. These women at the top were always white, even though we lived in countries where people were generally not white, and even though David Berg, our prophet, led a cult that recruited globally and was certainly not known to be schmexually discriminating in terms of race. The significance of this didn't hit me until a fellow survivor of the Children of God, who is a woman of color, commented on one of my Facebook posts. What, do cult leaders not like voluptuous women or something? In that joke, the truth revealed itself. Of course, it had nothing to do with the women being voluptuous or not. It was whiteness that mattered. That was exactly the point. I took to TikTok, eager to explain my eureka moment and see if anyone thought it had merit. I explained that, whether the cult leader is a man or a woman, we so often find this skinny white woman, overly dedicated to the cult leader, playing a very important role in the cult. One of her many jobs is to whitewash the sins of the cult leader, both to members and to outer society. Her power comes from the white supremacist and patriarchal and Christian concept of the pure, chaste white woman. Her very presence acts as a civilizing agent in a way we've seen white women play throughout history. We see this in regular organizations as well, where women, often white, often skinny, are let into the leadership in order to whitewash what could be perceived as the sins of the organization. With this realization, I also saw that I had played that role during my service in the U.S. Army, thinking I was fighting hard for the equality of women in the military, but in reality, I had maybe been more of a shield against critical complaint. How can the U.S. Army possibly be a toxic place for women if Captain Daniela Mestenak has been so successful there, doing the things they usually only let the boys do? I'd written my memoir, Uncultured, signed copies here, to try to tell a more nuanced story that in reality I was broken by playing a game never designed for me to win, all the while trying not to bleed to unaliving from the shards of the glass ceiling I was helping to shatter. I stopped playing the role of the skinny white woman, stopped being the perfect, proud woman veteran who would never say a critical or colorful word. I was not afraid of calling the army colonels and generals and the cult uncles out for their bad behavior. By letting it all come out, I had let it and myself get ugly, which goes against everything the skinny white woman is supposed to do. My musings about the skinny white woman concept went viral on social media, with hundreds, then hundreds of thousands of people liking, saving, and commenting on my posts. It turns out I'm not the only one who's noticed her, both in cults and in countless different forms of our regular organizations. In Cultish, Amanda Montell noted the pattern of power abuse with an older man at the top and by his side a clique of fair-skinned 20 and 30-something women who acquiesce to exchanging their whiteness and schmexuality for a few more grains of power. Even when a woman seems to be in power, such as a female CEO of a major corporation, or even your #girlboss neighbor who's making bank with her MLM, she is still propping up a system ruled by men. The authors of Feminism for the 99% tell us that this kind of executive feminism enables the forces supporting global capital to portray themselves as progressive while maintaining the status quo. The skinny white woman softens the cruel image of capitalism with her perceived sensitivity and nurturing nature. In The Trouble with White Women, Kyla Schuler tells us that when shed by the CEO, or white women at the executive level, white women's tears become a commodity, an asset, and a safeguard, proof that capitalism can have a heart. The emotional feminist CEO secures her own likability and cleanses, or whitewashes, the means of production at the same time, sanctifying runaway profits with the humanity streaming down her face. Through these online conversations and my own research into intersectional feminism, the image of the skinny white woman began to take form. She's the Allison Mack to Keith Raniere's, NXIVM's Keith Raniere, the Ghislaine Maxwell to Jeffrey Epstein, the Kellyanne Conway and Melania to Donald Trump, the Rebecca Paltrow to Adam Newman, and any number of evangelical pastors' wives. She is thin because in our skinny-obsessed culture, being thin is ideal and a visual representation of self-sacrifice. More on how cult leaders weaponize this desire to be thin in order to control women in Chapter 4. She is at once both a role model and proof that the ideal is achievable. For those outside the cult, she serves as an attraction or a distraction. In short, she is exactly who you want by your side if you are schmex trafficking children, as Ghislaine Maxwell and my own cult leader, signed copies attached, Karen Mama Maria Zerbe, demonstrated so well. Check out the next video for the rest.